K&A Custom Crafts on Facebook. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Smells Like Hope. Chris, I'm getting mad feedback. Please mute your microphone. Testing? Oh, come on.
The beauty of live streaming.
I know. I hate hearing myself.
Yeah. The mysterious world of echo.
What's going on, Chris?
Yeah, let me know if it's on my end too.
Nope, just me.
Okay.
Oh, maybe it's fixed. All right, sweet action. All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Smells Like Hope podcast. The podcast dedicated to shining the light of truth on the disease of addiction. Finally got my guest star, the man, the myth, from the WWAB network, Howard Collado. What's up, my brother?
Hey, what's up, Rob? Awesome
to
be here, brother.
There we go.
Do you hear me or my
Yeah, man, I've been watching you guys. Been watching you do things with the old Duke the Dumpster Drosy, longtime buddy of the show.
Yeah.
Always like your take on recovery and sobriety, whether it's the first day or the first year or the first 5 years, which you were at your first 5 years, right?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough one day at a time to get 5 years this past August. And as they say, that's it's been a journey, man. That's a miracle, man.
What's up, Brandon? Just so everybody knows, I'm putting it out there. Today is May the 20th. As of tomorrow, lucky number 3 years, baby.
That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the whole point of this podcast is for people who are not afflicted by the disease to understand what the disease is about. Thank you very much, Katie. I like people, the family members, the friends who don't really understand what the addict is going through, to talk to them, maybe give them a little bit of insight. And of course, the addict suffering in silence who does not need to do this alone. I try to pass on some messages of inspiration and hope for you because, boy, I'm not the guy who ever says, if I can do it, you can do it, because I'm not going to diminish my accomplishment. Yeah. But you can do it. It is doable. So I've lived it. Howard's lived it. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, at this point it sounds cliche, but there is a power in that one day at a time, right? That's so much of me, so much of it. It's been so much of part of what my journey was. Early on, I would call my sponsor and I'll be like, well,
did we lose you? There you go.
You hear me? You hear me? Okay. Yeah, I was just saying, I would,
I can hear you.
Early on, I would call my sponsor and I'd be like, so I'm not going to drink for the rest of my life. And he's like, no, what I'm saying, you're not going to drink just for today. And I was like, well, how do you do that? He's like, well, try not to. And this is literally what the back and forth was between me and him. And he was just like, you just think about it. You're not going to drink for 6 hours. All right. And I'm like, well, what if I have a temptation or have a desire? He's like, well, you're just going to give me a call. I was like, all right. 6 hours go by. And I'm like, well, what do I do after those 6 hours? He's like, well, you're not going to drink for the next 6 hours. And this might sound rudimentary and it might sound oversimplistic, but I am telling you, that is how I had to break it down for myself, that first year, that first 30 days, because I'll tell you, I mean, I used to be a process server and I would work in the street and I'll be.
Hey, me too.
Okay, there you go. So you know that job.
Yeah.
So, you know how it is early on, you're raw, and any little look from someone or any little, something might trigger you, and then the rabbit wheel starts spinning in your head. And there were so many calls of, hey, this guy looked at me funny, or this girl said this, and then blah, 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 blah. And I would have to make those phone calls, and I would feel like an idiot for talking about someone who I don't even know who looked at me funny. But that's the stuff that would generate, a resentment or anger or frustration of any kind, So those phone calls early on to that sponsor became really, really important for me,
It's funny too, because even before we got right, all we did when we were angry or lonely or sad, we covered it up with the substances. So when you take that away, trying to learn how to live life again it's a real son of a bitch, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, I would put it in a file, right? So if I got a resentment over someone, if someone pissed me off, immediately the way my brain worked or was wired is, okay, now I deserve a drink over that.
Right.
And that's the way my brain worked, very for 20 years, like this is worthy of a drink. Now I deserve a drink,
patting myself on the back.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If I had a really good long day at work, I'm just counting down, well, I'm going to start the night with a 6-pack, and then there'll be a bottle of wine, because I worked hard today,
Yeah.
But it was a reward system for me, a lot of my drinking,
See, I didn't have to make it so complicated for myself. It wasn't, first I'm going to start the 6-pack, then maybe have a couple of shots. For me, I'm going to do a bag of Coke. All of it by myself. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So everybody's journey takes them on a different path that way. People trying to come down off opiates and alcohol and get right off that, God, it just looks so exhausting at first.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but of course, it's not easy. You didn't become, addicted overnight. So you're not going to just I'm done and be done with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's you don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to be alcoholic,
Right.
Yeah.
You never make that plan. Hey, I can't wait to be a cokehead. No, you don't grow up thinking that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to drink myself and puke on myself and crap myself. And,
yeah.
It's like that Ron White skit that still makes me laugh when he says, I woke up and somebody shit in my pants. But it's that blackout thing. Is it the hardest admitting the problem or going to get help?
Ooh.
I admitted my problem to myself years before I got right. I never tried to hide it from myself.
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, I always knew in the back of my mind, I was going past the limit of what normal people do. I always knew that. I just never acknowledged it. I never looked at it much. I was in and out of therapist offices, always talking about mom this, dad that, but never much talking about the elephant in the room, which was my drinking. And I don't know about you, but for so long that was so much part of my story. I drink like this because dad did this. I drink like this because mom did that, and not to belittle any of those traumas that people go through at all. But there's something about finally taking responsibility for something that is killing you. So for me, I always kind of knew in the back of my mind, it's in the genes, it's in the, my dad was alcoholic, and it's probably something I have too, but it's also, they talk a lot about it being a progressive disease. So it starts becoming even more and more of a devil in your life, because I think we talked earlier, and I told you it's the first 3 years of my sobriety, even before my sobriety, I lived with my mom for a bit, and she hated my drinking, so I would have to sneak in sometimes alcohol, and I would have to, it got to a point where I was hiding bottles around the house, and drinking in secret. And I mean, there's nothing, for me at least, I could speak for myself. There's nothing sadder for me than Friday night comes and it's just a 6-pack, Netflix, and then that's it. And then I'm not at all saying if anyone does that, that's wrong. For me, that's what my life became, and life is so much more beautiful than that, But yeah, for me, it was definitely a progressive thing,
'Cause I have plenty of friends whose idea of a great Friday night is a 6-pack, a pizza, and Netflix, but they could drink 3 of that 6-pack and be done. There was plenty of guys that I used to know. I called them the weekend warriors that I would sell a bag of blow to. Is they could party all weekend, put that shit in their dresser, and then forget about it and go back to their life. And there's no way I could do that.
Yeah, well, what I forgot to mention is 6-pack, then a bottle of wine, some weed, and then a 32 ounce, and then I forgot to mention that very important part. But yeah,
crucial part.
Yeah, very crucial.
So then, would you say for you it was harder to go to treatment than to admit your problem?
I mean, I never went necessarily to a detox or anything. No, I hit meetings. That was pretty much the foundation for me, and still is. Well, more or less, what happened to me is, I got to a point, like I said, where it was getting worse, and in terms of how much I was drinking, and I was dating this young lady, long distance, and she lived in Florida, and I was still here in New York City, where I'm still at currently, and it was getting to the point where we were trying to work at some kind of relationship, but I would disappear off the face of the earth, especially on the weekends. That was funny. It's like a lot of my girlfriends always, they consistently all said the same thing. But without even meeting each other, they would just be like, "Howard, you just fall off the face of the earth. We don't know where you go." But long story short, so that's why I was drinking home a lot. I wouldn't go out, so I would just stay home. And I remember my birthday was coming up, and talking to a therapist, saying, I'm really scared of what I might do for my birthday. He's like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "I think I might, turn up my drinking a bit too much. I might probably go a little crazy." And then that's when he suggested AA. And, pretty much my birthday comes, I go to like a Dallas BBQ. I, down a Texas size margarita with an extra shot, drink that down. And I'm with a work buddy at this point who's not much of a drinker. I order another one, Texas size margarita, extra shot, dog that down. At that point, my buddy's looking at me like, "Dude, what is going on?" And I'm like, "Come on, we're going to continue the party." And, I went off, got a 6-pack and a 32 ounce of something, I'm sure. And then by the time I got home and I was talking with that young lady and we were FaceTiming, she just saw it. She saw it in my face. I was gone. And at this point, it had become a very consistent thing, and I remember, and I don't know about you, like when people called you out on your shit, like I would get defensive first and foremost. And I would be like, stop pointing fingers, are you perfect? And then really what happened that night is, for some reason, I just broke down. I just had an emotional breakdown, emotional meltdown in front of this woman. And the next morning, she's like, "Hey, check your phone." And I checked my phone, and then it was a link. And I clicked on the link, and then it sent me to a video, and it was pretty much me having this emotional breakdown.
Oh, wow.
And that was like a huge.
You had to look in the face of the devil.
Literally, bro.
Yeah.
Literally. And I'll share this. And I remember telling her when I was drunk and having this breakdown, I told her, like, "You need to get the fuck away from me because I'm gonna ruin your fucking life." And this is someone I cared about at that time, and that was like a huge wake up call, bro. And I remember being on my couch, feeling that, like, that sadness, that anxiety, that dread, that sense of doom, all that stuff. And
Completely beaten.
yeah, and just something just gave, man. And I remember, and I know this sounds a little like esoteric or a little too abstract, but I just remember, like for the first time in my life, like the debris was kind of like cleared for a moment, and I could hear something in me saying, "We can't do this anymore. Like I'm tired. We're done." You know.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I would go on and attribute that to what I would call my higher power later on in life, later on in my journey. But you know, I share all that to say it was progressive. It was building. You know, in terms of what finally allowed me to, and really seeing myself in that condition. You know, because I had seen myself like cute and goofy and doing dumb things on video, but seeing myself like that, just dejected, beaten, broken down, and crying. I mean, that I've never seen that, and that was the wake up call for me.
That what's Oprah say, the aha moment.
Oh yeah.
And I do want to real quick. I want to say, Katie, your daughter is awesome. She's a godsend. Tell her we say keep up the excellent work and thank you.
Yeah.
And I also want to say that Howard's story about just hitting meetings and getting right that way, that is a very atypical way to go about it. People who have a bad drinking problem, who are thinking they're just going to go cold turkey, do so knowing there's a good chance you can die from that. That's why they have these detox programs at inpatient facilities. And I would recommend not trying to do it on your own, getting that medical assistance. It's rare that you hear somebody who just managed to pull their own plug and not go down the drain.
Yeah. I mean, look, and there were many times where I tried to manage it. You know, I would go to parties and I would text myself like how much I had to drink. You know, I'll be like, 2 beers, text myself, and I get a message. And then like on my 3rd beer, I'll be like, or 4th, I'll be like, Howard, 4th beer. I love you, man. Maybe stop here? Question mark.
Right.
You know, on my 6th, I'm like, Howard, this is your 6th. And then after that, I'm not even, you know what I mean? But you know, so I tried doing it alone. You know, I try to manage it. But for me personally, I need other people. You know,
Yeah.
to this day I still do. You know, there's something powerful about, you know, someone sharing the nature of this disease and calling it out for what it is and sharing that with someone else. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure what happens, but there's something. I mean, it's just knowing you're not alone.
Sure.
You know.
You know, I still carry a little bit of guilt on my co-host of Wrestle Shoot, Chris Casanova. He had to spend so many nights. I was at the point where, you know, I knew that I had my criminal charges. I thought I knew where my road was going to end. I'm going to end up in prison. I'm going to end up dead. And he got to the point where he didn't even try to talk me out of it. He just listened to me vent until he couldn't take it anymore and he'd hang up. So to feed that into Brandon's last question of, do you feel you need a new group of friends to help? Yeah. I mean, Chris was an exception, but not everybody you know participates in, you know, your drug or drink of choice with you. So you don't have to shake those people. But typically it's a people, places, and things scenario.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, it's interesting, right? Because they really say, you know, you really start finding out that old adage, you really start finding out who your friends are, you know, early on. Like, look, people who generally love you and want the best for you, they're gonna, I mean, I think in my experience, at least, you know, they embrace it. And the people who are like, well, how come you're not the old guy? You're boring now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm boring now, right? Because I'm not going to jail at 2 in the freaking morning. I'm not like knocking down, you know, garbage cans. Okay.
And man, that getting picked up at 2 a.m. Oh, that's the worst time.
Yeah.
But you just sit there for 18, 25 hours just waiting for a judge to finally come see you. Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah.
Getting arrested for drugs and alcohol in the first place is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then you're amazed when you're sitting in jail of how many people are in there for the same shit as you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
All feeling kind of equally as stupid, about all the things that we'd already done tonight that got us here. Not like I'm gonna change it when I get out so I don't come back.
Yeah.
We're just pissed off about what we did. But when we get out, we're getting fucked up.
Yeah, pretty much that same cycle. Did you end up losing a lot of friends early on?
I ended up cutting myself off from absolutely everybody except for my parents and Chris.
Gotcha.
I mean, when I decided to get right, because I mean, I had, 70 names in my phone of people that I was doing business with. And they all would say, "Oh, this is my friend Rob." And that used to bug me. It's I'm not your fucking friend. Quit telling people I'm your friend. I'm your dealer. If I didn't have the drug you want, we would know each other. So don't call me your friend. That's annoying.
Yeah.
So what? You still there? There you are. All right, you froze up for a minute.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Boy, StreamYard is not cooperating today.
Yeah. It was interesting to me too, for me too, and challenging because I played with for a long time. I still do. I play with bands, and I had bands, and that was one of my biggest fears. Like, how am I going to tell my bandmates I don't drink anymore? And I remember. I remember that first rehearsal where I just brought a Snapple, to rehearsal, and the guys would always drink beer. But what I realized is I was the guy bringing most of the beer. I was the guy bringing the 18-pack. So once that stopped, they didn't really drink that much. It was really funny to kind of like see that. But that was one of my biggest fears, and also playing live sober again was a really scary thing. So again, but I learned how to bookend it. So my sponsor was like, "Hey, give me a call before you get there. How you feeling? I'm nervous. I don't know what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah." You get all that stuff out, and he's like, "Well, what are you there to do?" He's like, "I'm like, play music." He's like, "Okay, so just go there and do that. And then, say hello to people if you want, but then, leave." Because I don't know about you, like I always felt like I would stay at parties till 4 a.m. because I felt like there was going to be some monumental thing that I was going to miss out on, right?
Sure, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then you leave and you call your buddy the next day, and he's like, people just chilled out and like left, or the opposite, right? So and so created a scene, and so got punched, and and you avoided that.
And then puked on themselves and carried out in the backyard. Exactly. And you go, "Well, goddamn, that could have been me if I was there."
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I have a little bit of nerves over with relaunching my wrestling career again. Now that I've been clean for a little bit, is there's a lot of drugs in the wrestling business. A lot of drugs. The after parties and all that, which I'm going to skip just because I don't trust myself enough to go. I see guys hitting a couple of lines off the table. I'd like to say I'll be okay, but who knows?
Yeah.
Just seems like it's not worth testing, at least not yet in my life.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that you know that, and it's good that you got it. It's good. This might sound oversimplistic, but like the power of like just saying things, you know what I mean? Like acknowledging something, because now it's out, and you hear yourself kind of say it, so for me, that's like, it might sound oversimplistic, but sometimes I need to say, "Fuck, I'm pissed," or "Fuck, I'm sad," or "I'm feeling XYZ," because I don't know about you, but for me, I was a master hoarder of emotion. I would come.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like so much. Like I always try to be like this dude, right? I'm cool. Everything's cool. Everything's chill. Mind you, I'm like blowing up about something. And I would kind of compartmentalize emotions. Especially anger, man. Like I don't know about you, but like, how do you? I mean, are you like? Were you a person who got easily angry, or?
Oh, sure.
Kind of, yeah.
Oh, sure. I would take like I was saying just a minute ago when these people I was doing business with would be like, "Oh, this is my friend Rob." God, used to piss me off. That was nothing to get pissed off about. You just okay, and let it go. But we're not friends. If I didn't have what you wanted, we would have never met. We wouldn't be sitting in a bar together right now. We're only sitting together right now because you want something that I have.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of little things would set me off.
Yeah. But how about now? Are you
Yeah, I'm pretty even keeled right now.
got it. Yeah.
But
See,
I'm very much about the meditation and just you can't. Anger and sadness are the surefire roads to relapse.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I had this horrible cycle where I would, like I said, I would never acknowledge if I was angry with someone or resentful. You know,
Right.
what I would do is I'd be like, "Oh no, it's cool," and I would hide that, and then, and alcohol became a way to let all that shit out. You know, I'll tell you a little story. This is how, sick and suffering I was. I remember I was dating this particular young lady, and she was an actress, and she went, she went to some like after party show for one of her productions, and I think maybe the next night. I mean, it's like, it's like any party after you finish something. Everyone's like drinking, having a good time, wilding out. And the next day, she's like, I got to talk to you. I was like, okay. She's like, I kind of kissed the guy while we were, all drinking. And she was like, everyone was doing it. It's all these actors, hippy dippy. I was like, dude, my first thought was like, yes, I can get away with murder now.
With anything.
Exactly. I could get away with everything. And I was just like, and I filed it, and I was just like, oh my God, I can now come home at any time I want. I can drink however I want. And this all, by the way, all those thoughts happened like in nanoseconds. And so what came out of my mouth was like, it's kind of frustrating, but look, I know you love me, and I know you're not going to do that again. But that is such bullshit, Of course I was fucking angry. I was so angry, and but I just shoved it down, put it somewhere.
So you can't sing "You Kissed a Boy and You Liked It."
Exactly. Yeah. And for the rest of that relationship, I would just hold that over her. I'll be like, "Oh, remember that time you kissed that dude, and I was completely okay with it."
Right.
But that's not good. That's not healthy, man. That's not emotional. So that's not an emotionally sober response to feelings or to anger.
Well, sure. I mean, even when you get clean, it takes. I mean, I think it takes at least a good year before your emotions start firing correctly, man. When you get into the habit of getting hammered, it's just blocking the road.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that first, and I'll be curious if this was the experience for you. For me, it was kind of like thawing out, right? All this stuff starts kind of like coming to the surface, and you're starting to feel again, as they say, your actual like emotions for the first time. Like, how was it for you that first year?
With Coke, it doesn't really as much cloud what's real and not real, what's right and wrong, and you still like for instance, my dad died a couple years ago from pancreatic cancer.
Sorry,
and when we first found out it was happening, I was just still wowing out all the times. I'm not giving up my drug.
Yeah.
But I sat with him when he was I took him to his chemo appointment, and I was sitting with him, and I told him, when the worst happens, if the worst happens, when it happens, I want you to know I'm going to take care of mom and take care of the business needs to be taken care of. And he just kind of smirked at me, and he said, oh, when are you going to do that? In between your trips to jail, in between your trips to the bathroom? No, I don't need your fucking help. We got this.
Oh.
So in the hospital at chemo, I went into the public bathroom, and right there off the hospital counter, I was doing lines. That was my answer to that. Then when I got right and I came out of rehab, I was only out for a couple of months because I was doing a lot of taking care of him. I said, again, I want you to know that when and if the worst happens, I'm going to be there. I'm going to take care of it. This time, he goes, this time I believe you.
Yeah.
So then I get hit with this like tidal wave of emotions in it, which I hadn't really done. Like before I did the last conversation, I was just angry. And of course, I responded to anger how every good addict does. I just took my medicine.
Yeah.
Got rid of it. But my biggest problem was trying to accept the physical changes that were happening. Like, okay, when I was in rehab and I was in there for my first 2 weeks, when you go to rehab, you got to go, you sit through a meeting for 45 minutes and you get half an hour to go smoke or do whatever.
Yeah.
Then you sit through another meeting, then you go to lunch, you sit through another meeting. I couldn't understand why I was having such a hard time staying awake. Now, every real counselor in this facility was, a good 10 years deep into their own recovery. And one of them, everybody called him Coach because he owned a boxing gym.
Yeah.
And he was a huge cokehead. And he came and woke me up in class, and that made me angry. I was upset at myself that I fell asleep, but it was so hard to stay awake. Couldn't figure out why. So he goes, I said, Coach, what's going on? Why am I having such a hard time staying awake? Do I need to see a doctor? Is there something wrong with me? And he said, all right, cokehead, listen up. You have my attention, sir. And he said, more so than all the other drugs and the alcohol.
Yeah.
Coming off coke, your brain is going through a massive stage of rebuilding itself. So don't fight it. If you really need to sleep, come see me. I'll give you your slip and you can sleep outside. You can not attend a meeting. But it carried on for like 6 months. I was always exhausted. And one day it just kind of started getting better and climbing back up that hill. And then you feel better about yourself. You're seeing not only the attitude change and the mindset, but the physical changes.
Yeah.
Starting to heal. And the healing process for me was the hardest part, the physical healing, because I was sure I had a lot of deviation issues.
Yeah.
Turns out I didn't. I was just trying to flush all that garbage out of my sinuses that I've been collecting for years.
Gotcha.
Years. Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
But I look back on that, and when you're in the middle of your run, whatever your last big run was, your brain is telling yourself you're happy.
Yeah.
When you look back on it, you could see how you were clearly unhappy. You can get those same feelings back. When things trigger me, I might go through that 5-second urge, to use again. But then I got to deal with like the 30-minute aftermath of how that emotionally has made me feel and remembering how I felt back then.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people tend to fall off.
Well, I mean, I heard early on, like it's a feelings disease, and what I came to understand about that is that it's what you said, right? When that, those moments of anger, those moments of sadness kick in, right? For me as a alcoholic, I never wanted to feel those emotions. So the drinking becomes a way to kind of just escape feeling that, So what do you do then when you have to deal with those emotions? And I think like what you said, that's where a lot of people come into a lot of trouble. How do you deal with it? And thank God that I'm also an artist, so I've been able to find a way to kind of put it into my work in a way. But it was tough because I remember, here's the other part of my story, right? Because I'm a musician, so I idolized the Jim Morrisons, the Kurt Cobains, the late great DMX, all those guys, and I thought having that tumultuous life is what creates that great art. I went 20 years thinking that, and so I remember being really scared early on, thinking like, am I going to be able to create anymore? And I would raise my hand and say, I'm really scared I'm going to lose my edge. and I would hear myself say that, and then it would register how pretentious that sounds, for me at least.
It sounds pretentious. You're right.
Exactly. and thanks for agreeing. I'm glad. And I would laugh, and thank God I was able to kind of and that's actually when I started also being able to laugh at yourself. as well. At the insanity of the things he did, became very healthy for me. But you know, like I slowly, gradually just realized, like, look, either you have talent, and you work at it, obviously, or you don't, and that's okay too. You know, but I'd like to think I have talent, and now I've been able to work at it with a clearer mind, a little sharper focus. You know, um, but you know, the other thing in terms of being a musician, and that whole world, and that whole life, and dealing with anger and sadness, early on. So I was in this band for a while, and me and the drummer, we had been playing for 10 years at that point, and a revolving door of like bassists and singers. And at some point, we got a really good, solid, you know, 4-piece. You know, this great singer, this other bassist. Anyway, so we were really doing good, and but he was going down a really dark path. He was kind of on that coke path as well, also mixing and drinking. And I remember, like, you know, I was always told early on, don't break your anonymity unless you're going to help someone or something like that. But anyway, I just ended up telling him what I was doing, and at that point, I was like maybe 4 months, 5 months sober, and I just told him, like, dude, I'm getting sober myself. You're more than welcome to come to a meeting anytime you want. Like, that was the other thing too. I was told, like, don't push this on anyone if they don't want it.
Right.
You know, and I was really careful of that. Even though, like, you want to go out to the world and scream, "I'm sober! It's the most amazing thing in the world."
Come on with me, you'll love it.
Yeah. So whatever, I told him, and I just left it at that. And slowly, gradually, he was the guy who started seeing changes in me before I ever saw it, you know. And he would be like, "There's something different about you. There's just, I don't know what." And did that happen for you? Like, people who had not seen you in a while, or friends who didn't know what was going on, started seeing like those physical. But it's
everybody knew what was going on with me. Everybody, it was no secret. But yes. And that's where we get into like the hope segment of this podcast. Is, you know, after I got clean, and after I kind of shook my head, got the bats out, all of a sudden I'm pulling off things that I never pulled off before. You know, like when I was selling, I was going out and buying little jalopy cars, you know, drive it for 6 months till the wheels fall off, then get another one, cash out, just keep switching through those, you know, to keep the cops guessing. Because driving a little piece of shit beater, that's not a clue. But then, you know, I was skinny and just not looking healthy, and then I got looking healthy, and, you know, I went out and financed a car now that I'm sober. And like, what a big boy thing to do, you know? Like, wow, I'm such an adult now.
Yeah.
I smile a lot more, and there's things that I would never do before that I started doing when I got clean, and everybody was seeing it. And then I went from, you know, like, I had this dirtbag landlord before I got clean.
Yeah.
Just a piece of shit cokehead like me, except he had a building that was top to bottom piece of shit cokeheads just like me. So I never had to leave home to make money if I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And it was a dirty, crappy, beat down building. And now, you know, I'm a homeowner. I own a nice new car. I have a home. I look healthy now. And all these people who I was really ripping with started seeing that, started asking me how I did it. And I said, I did it from getting clean and going to meetings. Suddenly people want to try out meetings with me. So, you know, when people reach out for help to a person rather than like an entity, like a rehab building, they're reaching out because you have something they want.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to get it themselves. So they want you to show them. And I do. If you ask me for help, I'm absolutely going to help. But I'm never going to be like, "Hey, man, you're looking pretty shot out. You know, want to make a fucking change here?" I'm not going to push that on them. They'll tell me. Yeah,
but you know, it's interesting because that was a challenge for me. Because I always thought, you know, for 20 years, I was the biggest piece of, you know, shit in the world. Like, what do I have to offer, really? I would never admit this to anyone. You know what I mean?
No, of course not.
But that shame and that really shot self-esteem, you know, I always carried with me. I felt like damaged goods for a very long time. So when I started getting sober, and people are like, "Hey, I really like your program. You know, really start, you know, reaching out to help other people." I kept on saying, like, what do I have to offer? You know, it took me a while to kind of own in a sense, own that there is something I have to offer. If you want it, and if you don't, that's okay too. But yeah, that shame and that shot self-esteem, I had to really get through and get past for me to.
But you also need to get yourself to the point where you feel strong enough to reach out for help. Because when your first like 6 months of being clean, at least you're not really confident you can hold on to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, you definitely have to, as they say, build that foundation, build the tools.
Yeah. And I hear all, and I say this on most of my shows. I hear all the time these people who are just in rehab or in the rooms, just wherever people in recovery go to help each other. But you hear them crying that I've just screwed over my friends and family so bad that they'll never ever forgive me. And I tell them all the time, yes, they want to forgive you. They want to get on board with you. Just show them that it's the case. And last episode we did, I had my sister on.
Oh wow!
My sister and I were estranged for years and years and years due to her problems with way worse than mine. I never thought I would see somebody who had bigger problems than me until I looked at her. But now, she's 8 months clean and she's got herself in a sober living place. She's on the right course. She's working her program, and she's showing me that this time it's for real. So of course I'm open to my arms to help her back up. She's my sister, and I brought her onto the show, so it's proof of my promise that people will forgive you. Just show them why they should.
Yeah. I mean that immense stuff also is pretty, it's pretty powerful as well. I'm also such an alcoholic. So when I had to make an amends to my sister, well, I'll again full transparency and full disclosure. So when I did some of that, what's considered that fourth and fifth step work and that sex inventory stuff, I noticed that I would play these band shows, have a couple of drinks, and make out with guys. And then I had this very repeated pattern. I was like, I drink a lot and I'm an open, free loving, individual. And at some point it's like, no, dude, you're bisexual and that's okay. So I owned that, And so when I made amends to my sister, I was like, I did the whole formal, I wrote a letter, I read it to her, and she's like, yeah, and thank God she received it well, because that's the other thing, right? How someone receives your amends,
right?
It's out of your hands, you know what I mean? And you have to kind of make your peace with however they accept it. That doesn't mean you can't have your feelings about it. You can, but you got to allow them their experience. So she accepted it. She was like, I'm just, proud that you're doing this now. I was just like, oh, by the way, I'm also bisexual. So it's like, let me kill two birds with one stone as well with her. But, my mom, my mom also was just, I think she told me, she's like, you just gave me another 5 years of my life knowing that.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, because I put that woman through hell, man.
Oof, sure.
It's with her, it's like a living.
Our moms suffer first.
Oh man. Oof. I put that woman through hell. And many nights of like poking me to see if I was still awake or if I was dead.
Right.
A lot of those nights. So with her, I made a formal one, but it's to this day it's still a living amends, as they say.
Right.
But yeah.
I tried to do the men's stage with my mom, and she says, you know what? I don't want to hear your letter. I don't want to hear you telling me you're sorry, because you've already done that. Like when I had my moment of clarity, to where I was like, I got to be done with this. I lost somebody who was very important to me. Yeah. And I finally slept for 30 hours, and then I woke up. Like I told you on the phone earlier, I woke up and I look at this big bag of blow sitting on my ottoman, and I'm talking to it. Like, who talks to their drugs? This guy. That's who. I'm not going to do any of you today. Then next thing I know, unconsciously, I'm taking key bumps. Yeah. And the first call I made was to moms. I'm having this moment of clarity now. Yeah. I need help. She picked me up. And we went to an outpatient place, and they got me an inpatient. We got right.
Yeah.
Haven't done the making amends step with my sister yet either, because we just came back together. But just for myself, eventually, I'm going to do that for her or to her without insisting she do it back to me, because we spent years using together too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and you said it, right? It's doing what you need to do for your sobriety every day is in its own way, indirectly, an amends, because they're seeing that you're doing what you need to do for yourself and you're starting to love yourself. I remember, so the story I was saying before about my buddy, unfortunately, he tried to get sober himself on his own terms. And one weekend, he ended up, I think at some point, he was like 3 months sober or something, just doing it on his own. And then one weekend, he went out to party or something, and he went missing for a week. And then, unfortunately, they found his body in the Bronx River. And I mean, it just killed me. Obviously, I mean, we've been together for 10 years, but the beautiful silver lining of that story and why I share it is, so I remember sharing that in the meetings. I lost my buddy, blah blah blah, and two of my friends in that meeting. I was going to go to the wake, but there was some, I don't know what it's pride. I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how to communicate. I would love for someone to come with me, and two of my buddies that I had, two of my running buddies, I guess, as they say, volunteered and said, "Hey, we're going to go with you to that wake." And they did. And thank God, and then that also hit home, like this disease does want to kill you, in a sense.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is, so one of that young lady who I had mentioned, who kissed that guy in the party. She also knew the guy who had passed away, so she had come to the wake too. And we were taking the train together, and I ended up just telling her what I was doing, because we were just catching up, and she was like, I told her at that point I was like maybe 5 months sober, and I remember we were all on the 6th train in New York City here. And there's like about 6-7 feet between the aisle seats.
Right.
And I told her, and that girl jumped out of that seat and just gave me the biggest hug in the world. And she's like,
cool.
Thank God. Because she was probably worried that was going to be me, if I kept down my own road of drinking and destruction, so it's interesting to kind of, see how people are going to take in, your journey and like you said, how they're going to receive, an apology or amends or not,
Have you, I've experienced a lot of people that I used to party with that I've run into who told them, I'm clean. And they come at me very venomous because they're not.
Yeah.
Have you dealt with that?
It's interesting. People are, not too much. I mean, a lot of, I think I probably consciously stayed away from those people. Again, right? What I realized a lot is the people that I did party with, who I now communicated that to, that I was sober, like a lot of them were supportive, I used to have the singer of my band used to like piss me off a bit, because he's like, you can have at least one, right? Like later on, like this, like after 6 months, you could like, you're good to go or something. And I'm like, no, dude, that's not how it works. So then I would try and explain sobriety to him early on, at least. And then I just stopped. And I was just like, he's not going to get it. And that's okay. He doesn't need to get it as long as I get it, And eventually he just ended up embracing it and realizing I'm showing up. I'm a little more present now, but no one too, venomous or, every once in a while I would get the, oh, you're not the crazy Howard anymore, something like that. And that kind of sometimes rubs me the wrong way, You know, you get those people.
How you identified yourself as the Crazy Howard back then? That was a part of your gimmick, so to speak.
Well, you know what I realized, Rob? I'm crazy regardless.
Right. We all here because we're not all there.
Yeah, I did it. Exactly. I didn't, on stage, I'm still, throwing myself and doing all those, crazy fun things.
Right.
But, I was, we're crazy regardless. I didn't need, the alcohol just, that created consequences,
That is correct, sir.
created now.
And it's like in my case, being the big cokehead, I would get so spun out every single day that when I did drink, I'd be just cracking back these shots, and you don't really realize that the alcohol is in fact affecting you.
Yeah,
it's like those people who take a bunch of shots and try and drink coffee, and they go, "Well, that sobered me up." No, now you're just a wired drunk. And that's all I was a wired drunk.
Yeah.
I thank God I never tried to drive. When I was drinking, I would drink a whole bottle of whiskey, and somehow still be awake and talking and walking. It was that horrible white powder.
Yeah,
it's a curse.
I've heard some of my friends who were cokeheads. They talk about how that Coke low is really low.
Yeah.
That's really the worst part of the whole trip.
That blanket of sadness, it just envelops you.
Yeah. There was
now you're still wired up and can't sleep. But you're just realizing what a dirtbag you've turned into.
Yeah. Yeah. I was seeing, I don't know if you've been watching the A&E specials on some of the wrestlers from WWE.
Can't bring myself to watch those. I don't. I watched a couple of the Dark Side of the Ring. Watched how they were slamming guys, and I'm like, I can't do these.
Those are kind of like not that uplifting. But the A&E ones are a little. I think they're branching out to a more mainstream audience. Some of them have been really good and very uplifting at the end. They have just a good arc. But Shawn Michaels talked about that. I think that really bad, Coke Low or something. And what's funny is you're an addict and alcoholic when you're in a meeting and someone talks about pills or Coke and you're like, I never tried that. Damn. That's how you belong in that room, for me early on,
When you're using a lot of Coke, and just like a lot of alcohol, there's a lot of bad decisions that are really easy to make. Yeah. So I made those take a Xanny and crush it up and mix it with the Coke, or take the ketamine and mix it in with the Coke. You just, whatever it is, if I can sniff it, bring it to me. I'll try it. Except heroin, thank God I never tried heroin.
Yeah.
Because that would have been it for me. I know I would have loved it and been a goner.
And again, when I talked about, all the musicians and artists that I appreciated or admired, that was a big part of their story. So that was somewhere, as they call it, a yet, so to speak, or not yet. That was something I was kind of curious about at some point, in my life. And like you said, thank God, I did it, because I hear that's also,
You know what amazes me about heroin is, or I should say about heroin addicts, is they'll all three get together, go get themselves a bundle, right? They'll come back, they'll part it up. Somebody will always go first and overdose and kill them.
Yeah.
And their friends go, well, he's just a pussy, or he did it wrong, or he did too much. Yeah. I'm going to try it now, and I'll be okay. If somebody was sitting with me and did a line of Coke and had a heart attack and fell over and died, guess who's not going to do any of that Coke? This guy. I'm not going to do it. But in the heroin world, they'll be like, oh, well, but then again, they're also so crazy they'll share needles around when they know what a poor idea that is, but they need to get that high.
Yeah, that, as you say, that's the disease in its full glory and essence, right? Yeah. You're not even caring about that. There's another human life there that or someone
was gone.
Yeah, that's the essence of the disease right there for me.
And heroin really is that worst case scenario of the drug wants to kill you.
Yeah.
It's a parasite. It eats on the host until the host dies.
Yeah, that's a dangerous one. Thank God man.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing not funny, but I remember when I tried coke for the first time, I fucking loved it. I was like, oh my God.
Well, people don't do drugs because they're not fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I was just like, I think I asked my buddy, like, how much was this? And he'd tell me. I was like, ooh, this is way too much, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a poor guy's drug, that's for sure.
Yeah. We're frugal human beings. So I was like, I'm going to stick to my alcohol.
And that goes right back to my weekend warriors. They were all very well off. So they would call me up, get 2 or 3 balls for the weekend for them and their buddies. Yeah. But then they would just be like, yeah, I have some left. I just put it away. And I'd be like, wait, what? Put it away? You mean in your nose? What do you mean put it away? No, it's in my drawer. I'll get to it in a couple of weeks. How? And even to this day, I can't understand how.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, to speak to that, I mean, early on, I got into like improv comedy, first year of sobriety. Still love it. And again, right, we talked about those things that you start kind of reclaiming yourself, right? And I remember always loving comedy, but I never really like got into it. And that first year, I started like really loving improv comedy. So I got I became a member of this company, and I remember these like 20-something-year-olds, right? We're also in the company, and we would all go out after a show, and at that point, I was pretty good. I was able to like go out, get a ginger ale or something, and call it a night. But I would sit there with these kids, and they'll order drinks, and it's like an hour and a half later, and they're still on their first drink.
Yeah.
I'm like, you guys in your 20s? I mean, at this point, you should be like fucking 4 drinks in. Like, that table should be fucking tossed over. You know what I mean? Like, someone should be like fucking making out in the bathroom right now. Like, what is going on?
Why has nobody punched anybody yet?
Yeah. And it's again. It's a funny, humbling moment. It makes you realize, like, yeah, you need to continue going to these meetings. But it would be so funny because you had asked me before, was anyone venomous, about you and your choice, and they would, they would. And what's funny though is that when they would see that I wasn't drinking, unless they asked, I don't really go into it. But when they would inquire. They'll be like, oh, you don't drink? I was like, no. They're like, so you were just like an elephant with STD on stage, but you don't drink? I was like, that's called just now having access to your imagination. You know, and clear access. So it was hard for them to kind of make that connection. Oh, shit, but what's interesting now, hearing myself talk about it, like, it's so prevalent in the culture that in order to be imaginative and creative, like you have to be on something.
Sure.
Right? And I think that's what they, on some maybe unconscious level are probably trying to articulate,
Well, like you said earlier, some of the greatest artists, ever are the Jim Morrisons and the Janis Joplins and the Jimi Hendrix and all these grand artists who were cut off so soon because of their substance. It's kind of a part of the culture where they assume if you're talented, if you're inclined to be a musician, then certainly you're rocking something.
Yeah.
But you think, like, what would happen if you saw Jim Morrison today, if he was alive today and you saw him in one of the rooms? Like, how would you then translate him continuing on in his music career?
Yeah. Or what happens? Well, that's the other question. But that's something I became really observant of, right? Like, who are the sober artists, and what does their work kind of look like? I appreciated James Hetfield way more. I mean, I've always been a Metallica fan, but that part of his journey had become really more interesting to me and more significant, because it's like, well, who are your new heroes now? You know, that's not to say like you stop listening to these other artists, but like who do you now look up to? And I remember going to a Metallica concert for the first time that first year, and just bawling, dude. I was bawling because it's like, well, first of all, I took myself alone, right? Because that's the other thing as an alcoholic, very codependent.
I think any addict is very codependent. Even if you're in hermit mode, you're still upset if people aren't, checking on you.
Yeah. So I took myself. Well, no, actually, correction. I took a work friend who ended up. I mean, I'm not taking his inventory, but let's just say he also partook in a lot of, I let him be, let him do his thing. I was able to save money and buy.
Oh yeah.
Like you think these are things like everyone? No, I was never able to do these things. I never was able to save money and buy a ticket. And I remember going to that concert and knowing he's sober, and he does that great thing sometimes in a concert. He'll be like, it was in Giant Stadium, and he'll, in the middle of a song or something, he'll be like, "Are you alive?" And everyone goes, "Yeah." How does it feel to be alive? Man, I lost it, bro. I lost it because I don't know, like at that point, that first year, it's almost like everything accumulated to that point, came up to that point in my journey. And then those songs just mean such different things. So,
oh yeah.
Does that happen to you? Like a song you've listened to for a while and then like you kind of listen to it again, like different perspective?
Well, I'll tell you this, one of the bands that I really love is Kiss. And then I come to find out very recently that both Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, like they don't even drink. They have had 40-year music careers, never used drugs, never needed. I mean, Ace Frehley and Peter Criss certainly are a different story, but the real backbone of Kiss is sober.
Yeah,
that made me just like them even more.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the other thing. I'm a big Killswitch Engage fan. I think the lead singer Jesse, I think he might be sober. I believe. Randy Blythe from Lamb of God is also a pretty sober guy. And that's
they're actually all. I worked security at one of their shows, hung out on the bus. They're all really cool guys.
Oh, awesome! That's good to hear, man. I think the girl from Florence and the Machine, and then they're able to create this like great work, really good stuff.
You're so current, and my head keeps going back to like, oh yeah, and I really respect Alice Cooper even more, for getting clean and staying clean because I mean that guy, him and Jim Morrison starting the Hollywood Vampire Club together. You would think, how does anybody that far gone get right? But he did.
Yeah, and then listening to them talk about it, it's like for me, it's very empowering.
Yeah,
it's like you can create, really, for lack of a better word, edgy art, I guess, or art that's like, and still do that with a sober mind, And
I really get a kick out of listening to Sharon Osbourne tell her stories, like when Ozzy was like, hammered drunk, and he tells her, "We've decided you have to die," and tried to choke her to death.
Yeah,
because he was so far gone on his bottle.
Jeez. Yeah, that's a man. I can't wait for that biopic to happen.
Oh shit, we are over the hour mark. So, plug us into where they can find you online with your podcasts.
Sure, yeah. So I do a lot of work with the WWAB wrestling podcast, Wrestling with Anything But. On Friday nights, we have an amazing show, Road to Recovery, with Duke the Dumpster Drosy, Avi Klein.
Absolutely.
Check that out. That's really great show. I mean, all the shows on WWAB podcasts are just really amazing. Monday, we have Ray Lloyd breaking the ice. Tuesday, on Monday we also have Ken Patera, World's Strongest Man. Tuesday, I'm gonna hopefully not get these wrong. We have Bill DeMott. His show Wednesday. I'm also on that show on Wednesday, Maintaining the Truth, Pretty Paul Roma. Thursday today they had.
By the way, pass the message on to Roma for me. Every week on Wrestle Shoot, I'm calling Paul Roma out.
Okay, I'll let him know.
It's true. I really do it, but I tell him not to kill me. It's just, I just want him to come on the show, man.
I get it. Yeah, Thursday, Don Morocco. Friday, Mike Drosy. And then Saturday, we have a crazy variety, insane show called The Green Room.
The Green Room, yeah.
Yeah, but also my band, Bad Kitty, as well. We're playing a show July 29th.
Yeah, rock and roll, brother.
I'll be posting that stuff on my Facebook and Instagram.
Call it Bad Kitty?
Bad Kitty, yeah.
That's a badass fucking name, dude.
Yeah, this great female singer. It's post-punk. I try and throw in my metal in there. So yeah, that's where you can find all my stuff.
Makes me want to get back into music. My last band that I did was called Sciatica.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, we made ourselves a little album, did a little drawing, and it said "Check Your Back" was the first album name.
That's awesome, man.
That was fun.
Awesome. Yeah.
Back when I used to have hair before the whole solar sex panel set in.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I didn't grow this hawk until I got sober, as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's, dude. I talk about coming. I used to have hair shame. I know that sounds insane, but I used to
Hair
have
shame.
Yeah. Like, well, a lot of it's like, me and my pop, like I had a lot of resentment, anger towards my pop. So anything that reminded me of my pop or my dad, I would, and I had like my dad's hair. So I would always like hide it, and something just like, that psychic shift, that change, that's emotional and mental and physical happens. And I just started like embracing my hair, so this hawk happened as a result of sobriety.
Nice. Now, see, there you go. Share that hope. I just want everybody who's been listening to kind of, take what's been said today, because this went a little bit of a different direction than usual. This was much more candid and frank, and those people in your lives, if you're sober, you can't lean on them too hard. You just got to be there. You got to support them coming to you. But for those of you who are listening to this and you yourself, or somebody who is suffering in silence, you don't have to. Let me look at the screen in front of you. Like I say all the time, there's two people here who you don't even know who would help you. So imagine the people you do know and what they would do for you. So in closing, if nobody's told you today, I love you. You are worth all good things that you can get, and it's all just right. It's just right there. It's right just there. So just reach out and grab that son bitch. Grab it by the haunches and hump your sobriety into submission, baby. Make it yours. You can do it. Howard, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a long time I've been trying to hustle you up, so we finally made it happen, and we're going to have to do it again.
I would love to.
And on that note, everybody, be good to each other. We'll see you next week.
Take care, guys.